a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the channel, wherever you might be in the world. If you're a returning visitor to the channel, welcome back, as always. I'm going to go into the spiel right from the beginning because, of course, when we've got new people to the channel, they won't be aware, well, potentially, probably, most likely won't be aware that I can go off on a bit of a tangent, a bit of a waffle sometimes on the slides, even if I try to keep them quick, which I will be trying to keep this video today quick. Anyway, for those reasons, because I know time is a premium for everybody, I do put timing stamps in the description so you can just jump to the areas of interest for you. I mean, if you've got time, you can listen to the whole waffle. Obviously, that's on you, and hopefully you find it informative. Speaking of information, that obviously is the basis and the desire for me making these videos is to share the information with people so that we can grow our pool of knowledge. So if you do find anything of benefit, I would really appreciate you giving a thumbs up to the video, basically to keep me motivated and keep me making these videos as well. And the other thing is I invite people to make comments, to put your feedback up and let us know what your experiences of crystals are. I'm not sure if you can hear at the moment, but I do have a little doggy that gets a bit busy sometimes with his squeaky toys, and so I have to stop and start. Now, that being said and done, I'll just crack on with today's video. Today we're going to be talking about SUGILITE, and SUGILITE is one of those crystals that I absolutely adore, and you'll see why. So from an aesthetic perspective, it really is an amazing coloured crystal, you know, especially when you get it in these vibrant violet purple colours, and it's got the black with it. And it just, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm drawn to crystals for their colour and actually for the texture of it. And texture isn't always about the touch. Sometimes it's the way it looks, you know. Some crystals will look a bit yummy and almost like you could eat them. I know that sounds somewhat insane. That's not so much the case with SUGILITE, but I do believe we see here with the depths of the colouring and that kind of stuff, it just looks like it's got a very pretty texture to it. As far as the chakras go and which ones it's going to work best with, we can see here that with the crown chakra, I've got it on this slide as being a lavender colour, which it is, but you know, sometimes it's also white, okay, so it can be represented with white or the purple lavender type colour. But when we look at the violet type colours, we're looking at the brow chakra. So we've got with SUGILITE, we've got a crystal that taps into the crown, which is the power of thought. We get it tapping into the brow chakra, which is all the clairs. I was going to say claws. I don't know why I was thinking that. I was thinking clairaudio and that kind of thing. But your clairs, your psychic gifts, really opening them up. And we're also looking at the base. When we're talking about the base chakra, sometimes that's represented with red or with black. When we talk about the black, though, which is, of course, what SUGILITE has, we're really getting into the Earth Star chakra, which is not represented on this slide. But if you were interested in the Earth chakra and some of the other, because you've got your 7 major chakras, which are represented in this image, and then there's some other powerful chakras, 4 that I can think of straight away, Earth Star being one of them. I've actually finished the section on that on my website. If you want to take a look at that, you'll find information about the Earth Star. But anyway, this is my belief. I believe that SUGILITE will tap into, just to revisit and to recap, the crown, the brow, the anchor, the Earth Star, and the base chakra. So from an overview perspective of its metaphysical attributes, SUGILITE is considered to be a master healer, and this is primarily actually because of the volume of physical and emotional attributes that it's said to have, and this includes with things like psychiatric conditions. However, I would say that if you also wanted to tap into the Mother Nature aspect, the more black that you've got in your SUGILITE, that's going to represent the, I guess, the capacity to tap into Mother Nature, if you like, the environment, the Earth Kingdom, and that kind of thing. But certainly it is a crystal that is believed to promote spiritual growth and development. And when it comes to Cancer, I try to be like, I'm a believer in the attributes, but I'm also very much aware that there's no scientific evidence to prove the physical attributes of a crystal, which is my hesitation here. This is probably the crystal that is recommended for people that are undergoing treatment for cancer. And the claims are that it can actually heal cancer. This is why I say the claims are. Now, whether or not that means physically doing it, or whether or not it's about helping a person to remain upbeat through that process of treatment, I'm not in a position to talk about that. I would just say it's there. And if you are suffering from cancer, because it's recommended, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it as a crystal for you. But at the same time, obviously stick to your doctor's treatment planning and all the rest of it. And I was going to say, look, we'll be talking about the attributes of the crystals more further on in the video. But one of the reasons I believe that people would make the claims of it being beneficial for healing cancer is because it's associated with the violet flame of transformation, is what it's called. And that's supposed to purportedly do some in-depth healing on a physical level. I can say that I actually did a meditation with the violet flame many years ago because I was pretty sick and I couldn't get to the doctors. And suffice to say, I had one of those hacking coughs during the evening where you actually have pain in the chest cavity and it was hurting to breathe and all the rest of it. And I fell asleep while doing the meditation on the violet flame. And I woke up the next morning and I had no symptoms. And it was one of those, I think it was, I don't think it was swine flu. It was something, one of those special flus that people were getting back in the day, and they would get it and it would last for 2 weeks and then it would recur. They'd heal from it. And then about 2 weeks later, they'd get another dose of it. In my instance, I only ever had the one night of suffering. And that was because I used the violet flame of transformation, which has a mantra associated to it, by the way. Excuse me for swallowing as I talk. But anyway, that's just a little bit extra there in regard to the overview. Newbies to the channel won't be aware that when it comes to the zodiac sign, this is something that actually I really just share the information because I don't have fixed beliefs about it. I'm a firm believer. If you're drawn to a crystal, you buy it. Or if you feel it, best to go into a shop and actually handle it yourself. Or somewhere that sells it, get yourself a piece and feel it in your hand and see if it's one that you need to add to your collection. And your star sign has no relevance to it as far as I'm concerned. But there are people that believe that certain crystals resonate with certain star signs. And in the case of SUGILITE, there is the association and links between the star signs Virgo, Cancer, Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn. And I really couldn't tell you how and why they've reached those conclusions. But if you've got an answer, feel free to let us know. So just putting the disclaimer out here as well, if you're new to the channel, I'm not a geologist. I have absolutely no mineral expertise at all. When I get this information for this slide, I actually have to do some research on it and inform myself a little bit more than what I already have, which is not bad because knowing this kind of stuff helps me to be a more informed buyer when I'm looking for crystals to purchase. It helps me. Sometimes it will help me to discern whether or not a crystal is legitimate. You can't always do that though. Sometimes one crystal will look very like another, and unless you're actually a scientist or you conduct tests on it, it's going to be difficult to really identify it. So anyway, back to SUGILITE. In this case, what I've learned is that as far as hardness goes, it's not a particularly hard crystal. It's only 5.5 to 6.5, so it's pretty average as far as the hardness goes. And if you're not aware of what that means, it means that we've got to look after it a bit more so than some of the harder crystals. It's more likely to scratch and potentially even break if there's brittleness to it. As far as the colours go, yes, you can get it. Once again, I've got a violet piece on this image here, but it can be a bit more light purple. And some of the black that we see on the crystal itself, sometimes apparently that can look a bit brown. I haven't seen any colourless ones, but I believe that's the case. Transparency, of course, it's opaque, which means that when you hold it up to the light, you're not going to be able to see through it. And from a location perspective, apparently it was first discovered in Japan, and apparently that's all been depleted there. The sources in Japan are long depleted, apparently, but apparently other significant sources include a mine in South Africa. Apparently it can be found in Canada, Italy, and even Australia, which I haven't seen any of the Australian stuff. But if you know where there's some for sale, let me know, because I'll be sure to buy some. Now, speaking of buying, of course, the buying tips, this is just running over the stock standard, which is if you're going to buy something, best option is to buy it in front of you in the shop. Best option also is to have done your homework, get an idea of what the prices are currently when you're doing the purchasing. That helps you know if you're going to be ripped off. The other thing is know the weight, know the dimensions. How tall is it? How wide is it? Is it a slice? Is it has it been cut and carved? That kind of thing. And then if you're buying online, make sure you look at what fees are attached to it, because sometimes there's extra fees that are added, and sometimes they're a bit sneaky. I think most people know this now, but they might load, say, a tumbled stone at what looks to be a fairly good price, but then they might tack on some huge freight fees. And the other thing is too, for instance, me being Australian, if I buy from somewhere overseas and get it imported, then I've got currency conversions. So quite often for me, it's actually better to buy locally than it is to import crystals from overseas, unless it's a really good price or really good quality product at a good price. Before I go any further about this, that's just the basic general buying tips. In regard to SUGILITE, if you recall on the previous slide, the information that I saw was that it was opaque and it's not translucent or transparent. Now, the thing is, though, I don't know how old this information is, because my understanding is that the two images I've got on this slide that are in the center, that they are actually SUGILITE, but they are crystals of SUGILITE. And you can see just by looking at them that they will have some transparency and translucency about them. What have I got? I've just got to check my note. Oh, what I've got here is when SUGILITE is translucent like this, it's actually called a gel. So that's for if you're going to do your Googling to try and find some SUGILITE, well, I call it crystals, you would look for SUGILITE gel. And most of the SUGILITE apparently these days comes out of South Africa. What is the most cost? The magenta type one, which actually, okay, so those two images in the middle, they're more of a magenta color, and they are considered to be the most precious and rarest. So they will be the priciest. I don't have any prices on what they are. The other image on the right, I put up, that is choroid, because when I first started looking into it, I've seen some choroid that's got a bit of black in it as well. And I thought, I wonder how often people get choroid and SUGILITE confused. I've got no idea the answer to that, but I thought, well, look, I'll put up a piece of choroid, which you can see it's got that purple colouring to it, but it's a lighter purple than we've got with SUGILITE, and it tends to have some white feathering running through it as well, which is kind of interesting because actually choroid is considered to be a crystal of angels, whereas if you look at the SUGILITE, that doesn't have any of that white through it, but it does have the black and a bit of black veining. So that these images hopefully will help you to get your eye attuned for when you do your own buying. And you can see here on this particular slide anyway, that while the physical attributes of SUGILITE are pretty impressive, and we'll look at those shortly, just the spiritual attributes are massive in themselves. And it's all about healing and transformation, being able to raise your awareness of energy and to channel healing energy. If you were into angels, light beings, the celestial realms and all the rest of it, it's said to promote connecting with them and opening up the communication between them. That includes your spirit guides, definitely a crystal for manifestation and miracles. What else have I got here? If you were wanting to attract your soulmate, apparently, or your soul pack members, it's supposed to magnetize or energetically draw them to you. Okay, so one of the magical qualities or aspects of SUGILITE, I would believe, is that apparently when you work with it, it kind of lasers in on any of the energy blockages and helps to remove them, energize. The word is escaping me. So it locks onto the energy pockets that are blocks and basically blasts them, apparently. So it's very good for aura and chakra alignment, and also shielding your energy, your personal energy aura, from negative energies and attachments. Sorry, as I stumble over my words. Astral projection is right up there. If your third eye, if your brow chakra is not opened yet, apparently it will work to activate and open that as well. And if you're looking to get your messages from your guides in the sleep state and the dream state, then you could probably put a piece under your pillow. One of the things that I guess that I like about it is if you're trying to do that new beginning and shift on from limiting past, it's a crystal for that as well. And as I say, look, because it's got the anchoring attributes to it, it really is a case of linking the mind, the vision, with the practical reality. And I can't think of anything really else to say, just that it is apparently recommended as a crystal that you can put by your computer as well to protect against the electromagnetic frequencies. I think that's all. Otherwise, just run through that. If you've got a question, don't forget to ask. And sorry about the dog. So rather than keep waffling on here, and so the video doesn't get too long, what I'll just mention and highlight here is that SUGILITE is recommended for people post-surgery as part of promoting the recovery and fast-tracking it. If you do have cancer, it's recommended that you use the SUGILITE with the clear quartz. Clear quartz acts as an amplifier, by the way. Without running into all of the names of course, it's very good for any conditions of the brain, which could be if you've got frontal lobe damage or just brain degeneration due to age, neural pathway type stuff, which affects the processing of emotions and thoughts as well. You can see here as well, actually I will mention it because psychiatric conditions are actually quite rampant these days. So if you know anybody that suffers from paranoia, schizophrenia, psychosis, PTSD, I put PTSD in here. It's not like the other ones, but because it is associated with difficulty trusting people, and also the capacity to get stuck in the past and ruminate on the past. It would also be recommended for people that have got mood or behavioural disorders as well. So that could be emotional dysregulation. While those, I can see people would turn around and say, potentially, but that's mental health, that's emotional health, that's not physical. Anything that actually is on the emotional side and distorted thinking and that kind of thing, we're talking about neural pathways here as well and patterning. So this is why I always put it on the physical slide as well as the emotional one. And speaking of the emotional and thinking type attributes, SUGILITE apparently acts as an antidepressant as well. I think, but I'm not sure, don't quote me on it, I think I saw somewhere that it contains lithium. And if that's the case, it's going to have the qualities of sedating, if somebody's been highly stressed, to actually just help them to relax enough to get to sleep. Anyway, other attributes include dissolving and resolving family tensions and conflicts with children, especially if you've got it in the environment, the family environment, which could be your lounge room or your kitchen if you've got an ornament. It's said to promote self-awareness. If you're suffering from despair and grief and loss, then it's definitely a crystal that you want to have as part of your toolkit. When it comes to naming and taming those emotions and processing them and working through them, it's recommended for that as well. If people struggle with learning difficulties and problems concentrating and focusing, it's supposed to enhance that, as well as memory, recalling, and enhancing your abilities to do so. So it's recommended for students as well. And if you've been struggling with resilience, if you've been through one of those challenges of life, I was going to say through hell and back, bottom line is it will, it's believed to be uplifting to the mood. I forgot to mention and do the disclaimer again on the physical benefits and the emotional benefits, that there is no scientific evidence to support these attributes, okay? But I don't believe that there's any contraindications with using them unless potentially you were planning to use it as a water immersion elixir, and then you would be looking at, does it have any trace minerals in it, any chemicals? Lithium, you wouldn't want to be doing a water immersion elixir either. So while SUGILITE is not particularly hard, it's certainly hard enough to be able to carve. So you can find it as palm stones, worry stones, even with these pendants, um, in all sorts of shapes, actually. I haven't actually seen any ornamental ones. I haven't seen them big enough. I'd be interested to know if you can actually get it big enough as an ornament, but it would be hard enough to carve. I just don't know if they get it in those kind of specimens. So yes, we can wear it as jewelry. We can wear it as an amulet or a talisman if you're wanting to shield your aura as well. Definitely for meditation, holding, meditating, and trying to tap into the energy and properties, particularly if you're trying to connect to Mother Earth and the higher realms. And if you're the sort of person that does crystal gridding, you could probably use a tumble for that. But I'm open to your suggestions as well. For the newbies to the channel, the concept of the message of a crystal comes from the fact that quite often when I deliver services to people, I actually have what I call a lucky dip, a crystal bowl full of crystal tumbles that people can put their hand in and just pick out the one that they're drawn to. I wouldn't, just for your information, I would not be having SUGILITE in that bowl. But if I did, and the reason I wouldn't is because obviously it's too soft, it might become damaged if it's up against some of the harder crystals. But anyway, if somebody was drawn to it, I would be encouraging them to basically do some self-healing, holding the crystal in a meditative type state. You know, you can do it when you're lying down and put yourself to sleep with it, as I did back in the day. But the idea is that you do an invocation first, which would be invoke to the Creator, your angels and guides, beings of the lightest vibration, highest vibration beings, to assist in the healing process. Obviously, you use the words that you're comfortable with, because your comfort has to be pivotal to actually going when you're calling for energy healing. So yeah, you would do your invocation and explain the area that you're trying to transform. So if it's a health issue, I had the flu, I was looking to get rid of cold symptoms, chest flu and that kind of thing. So I would put in my invocation that I would like assistance with transformational energy to heal the symptoms of my health condition, whatever that may be. If you've got mental health conditions such as paranoia or whatever, to help heal the feelings of paranoia and the thoughts of paranoia. So you make the invocations work for you. And then you would go into the situation. Once you've put your invocation out there, I did it lying down, so I fell asleep, and that's fine, because I think when I'm just thinking that's fine, but I actually, when I do my invocations, I actually put a little disclaimer on the bottom saying if I fall asleep in the process, that I ask for the healing to continue whilst I'm sleeping. So there's a couple of tips there for you as well. But anyway, once you're comfortable with your invocation, you're ready to start a visualization process. You then visualize yourself standing in the flames of a violet colored fire. Obviously I'm going to have an image here which isn't up right now, but then you make that fire basically engulf your entire body, and it becomes like a pillar of violet light that is full of the flames, that is just searing up all the dross and the negative energy around you. Anything that is less than healthy, loving, that kind of thing is just dissolved away from you. And so just before I move on to the next slide, to explain this, in your visualization, once you've allowed the light to consume your body, you imagine that light going up to the heavens and all the way down to the core of the earth. And I'll just check my notes to make sure. Oh, I forgot to give you the affirmation. Lucky I did. Look at my notes here. Basically, as you're visualizing, you're just doing a little mantra to yourself of, I am the violet flame of transformation. I am. And you just repeat it over and over and over again. If you don't fall asleep, you do it until you feel that you no longer need to keep saying it. You might just find yourself drifting into a state. Now, the other tip that I would give you is when we're doing visualizations and we're trying to do transformation, you want to turn that flame or that light into like a whirlwind, a whirling vortex around you, a bit like that tornado image. And you will find that as you do it, or as you start this visualization and the chanting, you may start a bit slow, but then as that whirling vortex picks up speed, it will get faster and faster for you. And then after a period of time, and that's going to depend on whether or not you fall asleep or just as you go into the relaxed state, it will eventually slow down and you will be restful and peaceful after it. Either way, that was my experience. So do feel free to let us know your experiences if you decide to give it a go. And by the way, you can do the violet flame meditation without having SUGILITE, but I think if you were holding SUGILITE, it would definitely enhance the process. And you can also Google, there's a lot of different approaches online. You might find one that resonates with you that you're willing to try. And I think there's even violet flame guided meditations out there that you could take a look at. So when it comes to caring for SUGILITE, I've already explained that because it's soft, it can scratch when it's put up against other crystals, especially unpolished ones or harder ones. You wouldn't want to have it up against your points, for example, or some of your rough crystals. What would be the other thing? Yes, you wouldn't want to be dropping it on the bathroom floor, especially if you bought one of these delightful ones that we can see in this image here. Mainstream cleaning is going to be fairly easy, okay? So you could use a little bit of warm water, one of those mild organic soaps. You could potentially even use a soft brush if you needed to get into the settings of your jewellery, but you would always rinse it well and dry it with a soft cloth afterwards. Any of these ultrasonic cleaners and steamers and that, they can actually be harmful for the crystals, so my preference is to avoid them. If you've got real concerns for your jewellery, if it's set, then you could always take it to the jeweler itself and get him to or her to give it a clean. If you've got jewellery items like this, yeah, absolutely leave them in the box so that they're protected. Otherwise, if you've got smaller specimens, you might want to keep them in a specimen box. Carvings, of course, can accumulate dust. Well, that's where, a little bit of water immersion and soft toothbrush isn't going to do any real harm as far as I know. But when it comes to charging and activating your crystals, as I always say, I'm a big fan of selenite. I use it for everything, but I wouldn't be putting my SUGILITE that's polished onto rough selenites. Rough selenite would be too hard. Polished selenite would be fine for it to sit on. I would also probably rely on, and I seem to be doing more of that with the incense at the moment. I'm a fan of the frankincense and myrrh, although I like sandalwood as well when it comes to essential oils and that kind of thing. I also like lavender actually as a clearing and cleansing type scent, shall we say. I can't think of the right word for it right now. But yeah, look, some people use the tuning forks, some people use healing with sound to clear and energize the area. If you do Reiki and things like that, you can actually clear and recharge your crystals through Reiki. If you were going to place it, if you've got an amethyst cave, a lot of people like to put their smaller crystals into the amethyst caves. That would be fine. But I always worry about damaging the points on the caves and the geodes. But you could put a little bit of cloth between your SUGILITE and the actual geode. If you've got any thoughts or suggestions, do feel free to add them. Just a reminder, I'm just thinking, look, a lot of people recommend putting crystals out under the full moon. Yes, I probably would do that with my SUGILITE on occasion, not all the time. And I just remembered I probably should remember and remind people that with the brilliance of the colour of the SUGILITE, it probably would fade when exposed to the harsh Australian sunlight for any great length of time. I mean, it probably would need to be out for a while, but most of us Aussies, and I'll put my hand up and say I'm guilty, I've done it, we will put them on the windowsill and forget about them. And I've seen too many crystals lose their colour because they might have been on the windowsill for about 12 months. Anyway, that's all I can think of for crystal care. And so that actually concludes the extent of information that I can share with you. That's the end of my knowledge pool for SUGILITE. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys, wait for you to get back to me and see what comes forth. And in the meantime, I'm going to say, love you, leave you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being part of my journey, and I shall catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.